successfully, I might add, of course, with Game of Thrones. And Alexander, your work on True Blood, I feel like you have this fantasy, horror, murder, mystery heritage behind you. Tell us about...
That wasn't exactly unadaptable, though.
No, well, okay, I'll give you that. But it definitely struck some chords in the whole fantasy, horror, murder, mystery categories, right? And I feel like as a trio, it's really interesting to hear how you collaborated and developed this story. Tell us about coming to it, what you knew of the book, and how you came to this vision together.
I mean, the first thing that we knew of the book was that Barack Obama, the President of the United States, had given a glowing blurb to a Chinese science fiction novel, which, to the best of my knowledge, is not generally the way things go with presidents of the United States or Chinese science fiction novels. So it immediately piqued our interest, and then when Peter Friedlander from Netflix mentioned the books, I mean, I think I already had it on my Kindle in my stack of things to read, but it had fallen to the bottom of the stack, and we David and I read them both over the course of like maybe a month or two, and we, on our, I guess fittingly enough, on our last official duties on Game of Thrones, a press trip to Japan, we were on our way back from the press trip to Japan when we both finished the series within 10 minutes of each other, and I walked over to his seat and I looked him in the eye, and because after reading the final like 10 pages of Cixin Liu's trilogy, it really, I don't want to spoil anything other than to say they blew me away, and I wanted to make sure that reaction was not idiosyncratic, but was like a real reaction that someone else that I trusted would have. So I walked over to your seat, and I saw the same look in his eyes that I imagine I had in my own.
Things that we were handed the responsibility of doing was the English language adaptation of these novels. So it had to be primarily in English. So out of necessity, we needed the cast to be mostly speaking English, though a lot of the Chinese flashbacks were very much intact, which we're very grateful for. But it afforded us an opportunity to tell a global story. This is a story of how all of humanity either comes together or doesn't come together to face an existential threat. And if you're going to feature the world, you might as well represent the world. And that's what we took great pains to try to do.
And tell me also about casting specifically, because I feel like the cast of this is extraordinary. It's extraordinarily broad range of people. I had the pleasure of running into Jonathan Pryce at the SAG Awards, and I had just started episode 1 at that point, and he comes up to me and I went, "Oh, I've just been watching you in Three Body Problem," and he goes, "Did you understand it?" And I can't lie, I'm rubbish at lying, and I just started it. So of course, I'm like, okay, I don't know quite what's happening, it's episode 1. And I was suddenly transported back to high school with my physics professor's disappointed face. Except it's Sir Jonathan Pryce with disappointment. But anyway, tell us about casting these amazing people.
It varies from actor to actor, but Zine, for instance, who was in the scene we just saw, she was one of the last people we cast. We were looking everywhere for an actor to fill that role, and all over the world, and then somehow found her at USC. She was a student at USC. We saw her tapes. We thought, well, she's really interesting. And then we set up a Zoom. So it was the three of us, Derek, the director, and Zine, and our casting director for the Chinese roles, who was in China. And I don't remember if Derek was in England with us or he was in Hong Kong at that point.
Derek was in Hong Kong.
Derek was in Hong Kong.
He was in LA. We were in England.
Right.
And
so
Sun Yan was in China.
Right. So everyone's experience with Zoom at this point, it was not a good connection because like 4 different countries, and in the middle of these very intense emotional scenes, the connection kept freezing, and Zine would be in the middle of just emoting and just being so powerful, and then we'd lose Derek, and we'd say, "Oh, so sorry, Zine. Can you hold on a second?" And this happened like 4 times in a row. I'm not exaggerating. And I think a lot of people would have just been broken by it. You know, like, how do you maintain that intensity again and again and again? And somehow she did. What did she make? Some kind of like weird noises.
She would go just off camera for a second, so we wouldn't see what. She's physically not very big, and she would go off camera, and we would hear this. I'm going to do this away from her. We would hear this primal guttural. That didn't seem like it could be a sound made by
This
human
this
being.
wasn't concerning to you, or?
And then she would come right back and she'd be right in it. It was incredible. It was really one of the most extraordinary auditions.
You're like, this is who we need to cast.
It was, you know, Benedict Wong. We always knew from the beginning we want Benedict Wong to play this role, and
The detective.
the detective, and he was the only actor we wanted and the only actor we went to, and luckily he said yes. But and I remember again the 3 of us zooming with him. He was in a trailer in England, I think, doing another show, and just watching him and listening to him, it was like, that's the character that's the man we've been writing for this whole time. So, and John Bradley, we basically wrote that role for him. So it really does vary from part to part. Like sometimes you're just finding these people like who you've never heard of before, who are incredible actors, and sometimes you know in the beginning, like, we want John Bradley, we want Benedict Wong. So yeah.